So Jersey Shore starts off with a review of what has been going on in the past year on the show, and then it moves into where they're going now. And one of the big headlines is that Angelina, who had a wedding which caused a lot of stir because the girls said things that were kind of, well, which were negative to Angelina during the wedding, that Angelina was angry for like 7 months, and she kept arguing about that and wanted a redo. So they did a redo last season, which to me, I didn't like it because it was in the hands of Vinny, and Vinny always has a storyline that he is kind of liking Angelina in a love-hate relationship, and they're both from Staten Island. And Vinny, because he was in charge of it, he bought Angelina the wedding dress. He walked Angelina from her room to the minister where her husband Chris was standing, and he made her walk through a garden which she was yelling it was going to get her dress dirty. And then he was in charge of the entertainment, which was more about him. It was more about Vinny. He had strippers come up in a caged car with a glass siding, and they were doing all kinds of strip stuff, and Vinny and his uncle were dancing wildly in the front, and everybody else was standing in the back just looking. And so it really looked like it was a strippers party for Vinny and not really wedding for Angelina. Of course, Angelina's husband does enjoy going to strip joints, so maybe it was a bit for him, but it wasn't, to me, the proper entertainment for her wedding redo. It was just a party mostly for Vinny, because most of the other guys have a girlfriend or married, so they really weren't interested in seeing strippers at the wedding. So anyway, the storyline now for Angelina is that she and Chris are talking. She calls names and belittles him sometimes. They are always arguing about this and that, and then they get in a huff and they don't want to have sex. One or the other doesn't want to have sex. And to me, I saw that during the last season. That was kind of how she treated Chris then, and they didn't look like a real romantic couple. So I kind of saw that before this season of Jersey Shore. But she's bringing that up as the issue with their period of time since the wedding. And she has unfollowed him on the internet, and she's removed his last name or something. And so that's her storyline for right now. The other thing is, of course, the baby for Mike, the situation that's coming up. We know he's already had the baby, and it's a boy, but at this point when they were recording this, they hadn't yet had the baby, and they're planning on a reveal for the baby, and Mike wants to do a reveal where he's breaking through a wall, paper wall, and the colors of the gender come out as he breaks through the wall. And Lauren says that's not really what she ever planned. She never envisioned anything like that. She wanted something a little bit better, but Mike wants that because when he was in Paris, he ran into a wall and banged his head and was afraid he had head injuries and so forth, and so he wants a redo with the wall. The other thing that's coming up is Vinny is moving away from his mother. He's been stripping in Las Vegas, and he wants to move now to LA because I guess he can do his strip dances in LA as well as Las Vegas. So he's looking for something that's close to the city but nicer than what he had in New Jersey. So he finds a house which is nice. I think it's 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, and he's really impressed because there's a balcony and you can overlook it and look down on the city, and he says he can see the ocean. The patio is, I think, has parts of fake grass on it. It has a square little, which is supposed to be a swimming pool, but I think it's more, I don't know what that would be, but there's like a square area, kind of small, with water in it on his balcony, and then his walls of his balcony are glass. The house has a lot of glass. So Vinny, who's had a house before, this is going to be new for him because he's going to have to hire a pool cleaner. Unless he knows how to do that himself, he's going to have to hire window cleaners because there's a lot of windows in this thing. And it's 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, so he's going to need a housekeeper to take care of all this stuff. And I don't know if he's really figured up all the costs related to this house because it's just himself. He doesn't have a girlfriend to move in. Personally, if I were Vinny, I would have picked a nice townhouse, 2 3-bedroom townhouse with a top and a bottom, which he could have had in an area which had other people similar to him, and he could have been more connected to neighbors. And he would have had a better chance of meeting various types of people. In this house, it is a house, and it's in the hills, so he's not going to meet anybody really up there. Maybe a couple of neighbors. You don't know how friendly they're going to be, if he can build a relationship with them, or if there are any problems that are going to come from the neighbors. And it's going to be more isolated, so I really don't know if this is the best place for a single person with no girlfriend, no kids, but this is what he chose. And I did see in a magazine that I think this is the same house that I saw advertised in the magazine. That was the house that Vinny chose. So, beautiful house, and it's certainly spacious for Vinny. And I think I saw in one of the reviews, Vinny's mother and uncle Nino do come out and visit him in this new house. So I don't know if his mother has a key or not. Then there was a tease that Pauly is getting serious about Nikki. But that was just a tease, and we'll have to wait later to see if anything comes of that, or if they're just in the same relationship, which I think they're very happy in, where they're living together. I don't know if they live together all the time or just part of the time, but they seem very happy with the current relationship that they have. And of course, Ron has a big house, and they show just a very little bit of Ron's house. And Ron says his girlfriend Sapphire has moved in to the house with him. And then they go outside, and his brother's car is out there. So I don't know if Ron's brother is also living in the house, or if Ron's brother's girlfriend, if she exists, also lives in the house. But Ron has a very nice, spacious house, a lot of white. And I think Ron also has a lot of glass. And so that was very interesting. See, who else did I leave out? Then we went and saw Angelina's house. We didn't really see Angelina's house. We saw, I think, a bit of the kitchen. And she was making cheese and cracker plate for Jenny and Deena because they were coming over to visit. And that was kind of awkward because Deena has been friends with Angelina, but Jenny not so much. And then they sit down at the table with the cheese and crackers in the middle of the table, and that's when Angelina talks about her marriage, and she and Chris have fallen into a humdrum of their marriage. And as I said before, the storyline is whether or not this will be resolved or whether this will lead to a further problem in their marriage. We haven't heard anything from Snooki, so I think that's basically it. Oh, and we saw Micah Situation's house. Of course, he's there. During this part, Lauren is still pregnant, and we've got to get Lauren out of those sweatsuits. She's become very, very comfortable in sweatshirt and sweatpants and hoodies with her hair back, usually back in a ponytail. Now, of course, I can understand this part because, of course, she is pregnant, and that is a comfortable situation for pregnancy. But I had noticed even last season that Lauren had gone more and more towards sweatsuits, and so we'll see if she can be a little bit more fashionable, just so that visually this season has a little bit more variety and more things we can discuss. We'd like to discuss Lauren's fashion. Now, the Situation and Lauren bought a big house. I can't remember exactly, but I think they have like 9 bedrooms, and it's a very big house, and they have a pool and this and that, and they have a lot of trees, and I'm sure it's a gated community. So they have a lot of expenses with their house, and I think it's too big for them because my personal opinion is if you get a house that's too big, you tend to get distant from each other. The man tends to go in his part of the house that he feels comfortable in. The female tends to go in her part of the house that she feels comfortable in. The kids, of course, are running around, and you have to be running around looking for them and making sure they aren't getting into trouble in other rooms, or they're not having a problem. And it's just too much. So I was thinking initially they should have gotten a smaller house because it's only 3 of them. And more than likely when you get a really big house, you all kind of live in, one big room. Now their bedrooms are going to be big. So Mike and Lauren's bedroom is probably huge. It probably has a couch in it. It probably has a TV. And it probably has an attached bathroom. So that's an apartment right there. And with a baby, you move the baby in so that the baby doesn't get lost or go down the hall somewhere. So a baby's bedroom at this stage of life is too difficult to manage. You have to keep running back and forth and trying to keep track of what's going on over there. So they'll probably all be in the main bedroom, and the rest of the house will be who knows what. I kind of thought maybe they got a big house because they could use it as part production studio and maybe do a write-off on it. I know they got a good price on that house, so maybe that was part of the thinking, but who knows. But my main warning to all of these people, because I think I saw Jenny's closet, don't get loaded up with too much junk. And I think one of the things you should do, and what I would advise people to do, is declutter frequently. Get rid of stuff. If you don't want it, if you're not using it, sell it, give it away, whatever you need to do. You can give it to a charity even, but don't get caught up with a whole lot of clutter. How many shoes does a person need? How many dresses does a person need? So figure that out. Don't buy too much stuff. Put your money elsewhere and declutter. Keep the room sparse. I like a sparse room that's nice and clean and doesn't have a whole lot of dust and stuff in it. So that would be my main thing for Jenny and Mike and everybody. So that was pretty much the end of this episode. It was very short. It was just an introduction and to bring people up as to where Jersey Shore is now. And then I guess for next week, we'll see what happens on the storylines. So Mike sets up a Zoom call with everybody, sends them pizza, and Angelina got chicken wings and ranch sauce and so forth, and then of course Vinny, being the keto guy, I think he was just having a salad, and then they wanted to discuss Angelina's marriage problems. But on the Zoom call, Angelina came with Chris, so it made it awkward for them to discuss what was going on with her and Chris. And so Chris didn't seem to know what the issue was. Vinny made some wisecracks about Angelina and a divorce, and I could tell in Angelina's husband's eyes, he was a little tense there for a minute, but he seemed to relax. He was laughing a lot and everything seemed to go well, but it looked like Angelina and her husband are doing well. From the Zoom call, Deena had a suggestion. She said for Christmas, because this was all filmed in around November, she suggested that they do a cookie exchange, that they make cookies and switch them up with the people in the group. Now this is 4 guys and 3 girls. Well, actually, there are more than 3 girls. Pauly's girlfriend likes to cook. Deena, I guess, likes to cook. Jenny has kids, so I'm sure she'll be baking. And Angelina says she's not a cook, so she doesn't think she'll be baking. And then for Ronnie, his girlfriend, she's not a wife, so I don't know if she wants to bake or not. But he does have a little girl, so they might bake. But it was kind of an awkward thing to suggest to this particular group, but we'll see how that goes if they do the cookie exchange. And Jenny says she's going to make a dozen cookies for each person, so that's 7 dozen cookies, which is a lot of work, but she has a number of kids, and that's okay, but I don't think the group needs 7 dozen cookies each. I mean, a dozen cookies from each person, because they're getting older and they're getting fatter, and they have to watch their calories, so probably most of those cookies will end up in the trash. Then we see Ronnie go over and visit Pauly, and Pauly has all these motorcycles in the garage and a million motorcycle hats, and he uncovers that his hair is blonde. Pauly and Nikki have been together for 1 year during COVID isolation, and he wants to celebrate, so he goes out on the limb with some wine, some floral petals on the floor, and presents her with a gift, and it looks like a Tiffany's box. And we'll have to see next week what happens.